Hi, my name is Rayanne Porte and I'm glad you're here. In this video, I'm going to be talking all about how to navigate food if the holidays are hard. In the first part of the video, I'm going to be sharing a little bit about the ways that we struggle with food, and this will be helpful in order for us to better understand ourselves and our relationship with food. Then in the last part of the video, I'll be talking all about if we are prone to emotionally overeat, how we can handle the holidays if they happen to be hard for us. I'm hoping that this video will leave you filled with hope and encouragement in your journey. Okay, so first I want to take just a couple quick minutes and talk a little bit about the ways that we struggle with food. So for me, there were 4 ways that I struggled with food that this is what God revealed to me in my healing journey. So 2 of the ways that I struggled with food were really bent towards kind of restricting my food and just having a lot of pride around food. And 2 of the ways were really kind of all rooted in shame around food and overindulgence. So when it came to that pride side, dieting was definitely one of the ways that I struggled with food. And I just super restricted my intake, whether that was caloric content or whether that was specific food groups. There were seasons where I was just not eating certain foods, not because of an allergy, but just because I thought that would lead to a certain appearance and that would lead to happiness. So a second way that I struggled with food on this extreme is that I was hyper controlling what I ate. And what do I mean by that? Well, I was technically eating enough. I wasn't under eating, and I even was eating all food groups, but I was still hyper controlling what I ate, meaning I had to eat a certain carb to fat to protein ratio. I was obsessed about eating a certain amount to fuel the workouts that I was doing. And it was just really this obsessive mindset that I had around food, when technically on paper I was eating okay. It was still my God. Okay, so now let's talk about the other extreme when it came to the shame side of food. So in the season that I was struggling with dieting and I was heavily restricting what I was eating, I experienced my body naturally gravitating towards binging in response to all the dieting. So our body can only, some people's bodies can only handle that type of restriction for so long before the body is screaming, I'm deprived, and it will do anything it can to get what it thinks it needs. And so that's why I didn't realize it at the time, but I experienced binge-like behavior that was almost automatic, extremely impulsive, as a reaction to the dieting. So the second way that I experienced kind of overindulgence was emotionally overeating. And this was a different season than when I was experiencing the heavy swings of the diet binge cycle. And so when I was emotionally overeating, it was in a reaction to a really stressful time I was going through. I was using food to get me through life's difficulties. And so the reason that I bring up these kind of 4 different ways that at least I struggled with food is because it's helpful for you, I think, to think about the ways that you struggle with food. Every single person is different. You might struggle with food and not these 4 ways, but I have found a lot of times when I talk to women out there, there are multiple ways in which we struggle. So it's one thing if we're talking about restricting in a certain sense, and it's the same thing on the other end. We can't just talk about overeating in general, because we want to make sure that we're understanding ourselves and our nature and what type of overeating and when it usually happens and occurs. So in this video, for the rest of the video, I'll be talking about overeating from a sense of using food to cope with life, to numb out, to zone out, to check out, to kind of hide from our feelings, When we are going through a difficulty or a struggle or something in our external circumstances is really hard for us, and we're using food in that way to get us through. And so a lot of times this can be the holidays for us. So I'm hoping to spend the next few minutes giving you encouragement that if this is you, I have totally been there. So you are not alone, first and foremost, know that. But I'm hoping to give you a couple things that you can do today that for the next few weeks you can implement in your day-to-day that will kind of help you approach the holidays in a different way than maybe you have before. Okay, so let's talk about the holidays. The holidays can be a super joyful time for a lot of us. It brings together people that we might not have seen for a long time. We get to celebrate Jesus's birth. We get to have parties. Our kids get to have Christmas programs. It can be a really exciting time for a lot of us. But for some of us, it can be a really hard time. And why is that? Well, a lot of us might be grieving the loss of somebody really important in our life. And the holidays bring up a time of a ton of memories that we may have had with this person. Another thing is just family dynamics. It can be great to see our family, but sometimes there might be tension there. There might be stress when it comes to seeing family that you haven't seen in a long time. How do we navigate that? Another thing is just the pressure to meet social expectations and go to all these parties and buy all the gifts and serve all the food and have all the decorations. And that's a lot of pressure. Another reason why the holidays could be hard is just change in routine. There's like a lot of things that happen during the weekend or during the week that we don't normally do. And even on the weekends, maybe our weekends are full of things back to back to back, whereas normally we might have just one or two things. And so that can bring stress. Another thing is just the weather. It's setting in that, okay, instead of just a cool fall, now we're starting really cold winter, and that can be hard and it can take a toll on us and our mental health. Another thing is finances might be stressed. You know, there's expectations for giving, and that might have stress on our bank account. And just in general, there could be a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, and just a lot of expectations for the holidays to be joyful. And when they aren't, that can, be a little bit disheartening. So lots of reasons can contribute to why the holidays might be hard for some of us. Okay, so for me, I definitely experienced hard holidays in the past. And so through going through those and just through God revealing things to me, He's taught me 4 things that I want to share with you today that have helped me during holiday seasons to not kind of fall into old patterns of emotionally overeating. So the very first one is kind of surprising. But the first thing that was helpful for me was to actually admit that food did bring temporary comfort. It did bring relief. And why is that? Well, it's because God made food enjoyable. It is a gift to us. When we consume food, chemicals and different things are released in our body, like serotonin and dopamine, that give us feel-good feelings. But what I realized is that I always would be wanting more when I was eating in such a way where I was going to food to help me through outside circumstances instead of just enjoying it as a gift from God. And so for the longest time, I kept telling myself, food isn't good. I shouldn't be going to food. I knew that I was kind of going to it to bring myself comfort and relief, but I didn't. It was a shift for me when I actually admitted that, you know what? This is going to feel good in the moment to eat. This is going to bring temporary comfort, but it's not going to come close to the comfort that God gives. It's always going to fall short. And so I kept on needing more and more food to get me that feeling of comfort or to get me that feeling of release or that feeling of relief or the feeling of wanting to escape from my problems. And so once God told me that, he basically said, you know what, Ryan, it's okay to like food. I made food good, but I made it as a gift. I am the gift giver. I am your true comfort. And so come to me when you're going through a hard time. And so that leads me straight into my second point, which is that God is our comfort. This is such good news. In 2 Corinthians 1:3-4, it says, praise be to God the Father, praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves have received from God. And how encouraging is that? It's not that God displays compassion, it's that He is compassionate. He created it. That's in essence His character. And so it's so amazing that we can go to Him as our source of comfort. And so what does that even mean and what does that look like? Well, for me, that looks like going to God with my feelings, going to God with all of the sadness I am feeling that this holiday season might bring and all of the anger that it might bring. It's not ever a sin to have emotions. We are human beings. Like, it's part of our nature to experience sadness and to experience anger. But it's what we do with those emotions is what matters. And so whenever I go to God, there is so much freedom in that. And that's where He can help me sit in those emotions. And that's where He can literally wrap His arms around me and comfort me in the midst of them. Like, how amazing is that? There was so much agony, I feel like, back in the day when I hid from my feelings or when I tried to stuff them down. I kept thinking that it was wrong of me to feel anger or to feel sadness, or maybe not even necessarily that it was wrong to feel those things, but it just made me uncomfortable. But now that I know I have this open dialogue and this open door to God to be real with Him, it changed everything. And so I would definitely encourage you to do that this holiday season if you're experiencing sadness or anger. And He does give us His peace. He does give us His comfort. Like, it is a real thing. Okay, so point number 3. Remembering that Jesus is the reason for the season. So one thing that I do around the holiday season is I just remember the gift that I've been given through Jesus. So how amazing is it that I have salvation for all the sins that I've committed, and I don't have to pay that penalty for those sins, and I don't have to have those sins reign in my life anymore because of the power that we have through Jesus dying and rising again on the cross. And so we get to celebrate His birth in this time, and that's what the season is for, which is so exciting. And not only that, but I think back to all the things that God has done in my life, all the ways that He showed up, all the things that I've laid down to Him, and that all the ways that He has given me His comfort and peace in the past. So I remember those times historically in my life when I've seen Him work. And that's one thing that helps me going forward to know that, oh, God is showing up. He is giving me comfort in this time. It is really hard to go to that party or to face that thing, but God is right here with me. Okay, so last point number 4 is, it's kind of like a twofold point. It's remembering others and others remembering us. So remembering others, that point just means like, that we get to enjoy giving. We get to enjoy sharing our faith. We get to remember that part of the holidays are outside of us. Like, sometimes when I get outside of me and my own 2 feet, it helps me remember God. It helps me remember, oh, You've given all these people in my life to me so that I can share my faith with them and so that I can bless them through giving. And then the other point is other people remember us. And so God speaks to us sometimes from other people. So while other people know that we are grieving in the season, or while other people know that we are going through a hard season, they're going to send us text messages. They're going to reach out to us. We get to feel God's love around us through other people sometimes. And so what a blessing that is. So I hope that you have found this video helpful. I hope that maybe this season you'll remember these few things. And this season will be a different experience for you than maybe past seasons, where we have gone to food when, it's not that we were wrong or bad or terrible people in those times, but we just didn't know. And now that we know this beautiful relationship that we have with Christ can bring us true hope and true joy and true peace, now we get to go that route. So if you want to talk about your situation, I would love to chat with you. My Instagram handle is @food.fitness.andthegospel. You can always send me a message. I will see you right back here next week for my last video in which I'll talk about the holidays and how to navigate them.